There's these other benefits to that attitude too, and the first one's installing work ethic. You
Mhm.
give everything you have. That's what work ethic is. I'm not trying
Yes.
to be as good as someone else, whatever. I'm trying to be the best I can be. Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. I've got Albert Bramante with us today. And Albert, as we always do on STS, no one knows Albert better than Albert. Albert, give us the backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into the conversation.
First, I want to say thank you, Richard, for inviting me to be a guest. I'm really happy to be here. So, my name is Dr. Albert Bramante. I primarily work as a talent agent in New York. I represent actors in all areas of film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. I also have a PhD in psychology. I've been an adjunct professor for over 20 years. I teach different psychology classes at a few different community colleges. Right now, I'm at Borough Manhattan Community College in New York. And I've been in the past few years working in the performance mindset space as well, like helping people overcome self doubt, imposter syndrome, fear of success, and any other type of blocks that may be preventing them from moving forward.
That's great. Yeah, that is it's funny. It's been, I wonder how many years it's been now since the word imposter syndrome popped up. Okay, because I never heard that ever until maybe it was 5, 7 years ago, 10 at the
Yeah,
most,
it
right?
became a major buzzword, I'd say around, late 2000, 18, 19.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and
So,
then and then it's been ever since. But it's something that's been pervasive for the past several decades, even.
well, I,
It's
I, th- I
the name of it now.
yeah, I think the name fits. Actually, it's one of those that's like actually works. Do you know what I mean? It's very interesting. At first, you kind of get some pushback from like a
Hmm.
guy like me. I'd say like whatever,
Yeah.
but I think what happens, Albert, is a lot of people don't get the definition. They haven't heard it. They hear the imposter syndrome, and then their
Hmm.
own mind creates what they think it is. But I'd love if you take a minute here and just kind of explain what it actually is, so people have a good quality definition.
Well, the one thing that is correct, you'll hear so many different definitions of the term, but really the textbook kind of definition is when you feel like a fraud. Now, let me expand on that because that might seem a little bit vague. But let's say you're a content creator, you're a coach, or you're an actor. There may be times because of maybe lack of feedback or lack of where you feel you should be moving, momentum, so to speak. You start to sit there and doubt, like, am I really qualified to be doing what I'm doing? Are people going to really take me seriously? Well, what if I fail, or what if people find out that I don't know what the heck I'm talking about? And these questions kind of pop up. Now, you may hear some people say you need to, banish it or completely get rid of it. I'm not sure that that's possible. I don't think that that's even advisable. I think what should be said is how do we work through it, or how do we not let it hold us back, but even be a catalyst to help us move forward. So this is why one of the things I say is there's no such thing as perfection, and to just do it genuinely. And even if you have a failed start, a start that's still a start, and that's amazing. You're going to make mistakes. We're human beings. We're not, deities. We're not gods. We're human, which meant that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to flop. We're going to have failures, so to speak. So the idea here is let it help us. So if I'm like, for me, I'm not very well versed in the technical side of things. So now this is my time to learn more about the technical side of things. When it comes to like online creation. So instead of saying, well, that's it, I'm not going to do anything at all, I'm more of the fact where I'm like, this is an opportunity for me to train in those areas that I maybe, feel that I'm lacking in. So the idea is let it be a guiding force, instead of instead of a limitation or something to avoid. Because also one of the things that keep in mind, our nervous system, our brain, has one purpose, and that's to survive and protect us. And thousands of years ago, we were in caveman and hunter gathering days. We were in constant danger, real danger at times from either large animals, animal predators such as the saber-toothed tiger, but there was also other tribes that could come and murder and kill us. So that we need to be vigilant and on guard. That was the only way we survived. And our reptilian brain, if you want to call it that, I call it maybe just the human brain, is designed to keep us alive. And so any perceived danger, which would be anytime stepping outside your comfort zone, your brain starts to register danger, danger, danger. It sends a signal. Again, to protect us, to keep us alive, and to keep us here. So this is why I think, that whole imposter syndrome starts coming in there, that nervousness, that hesitation. Again, that's our brain and nervous system protecting us. So then that's why we have to tend to rise above all of that chatter and say, look, I'm not in danger. I'm not going to get, murdered for, doing this little thing. So I'm not going to be hurt by this. And let's just do this. And so one of the things I advocate is to take action, imperfect action. Never ready is a lie. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm not ready to do this. That's a lie. Because that's also another thing I see a lot of people that are aspiring coaches and leaders are like, well, I really want to do this, but I need more training in that. And that might be somewhat true that they may need, can benefit from extra training, but they let that stop them. It's like, well, I'll create this course once I have this training done. The problem with that type of thinking is we're all going to be focused on that. It's going to then be, I need this net. Now I got this, oh, but I still need that done. And before you know it, you're the type of person, and I can relate to this, we're the course junkie. You're bookshelf, you have online membership and courses, in the thousands, and not doing a thing about it. So the one thing I say is like, okay, benefit from those courses, benefit from those books, but start, because you can always learn. You can always add to your skill set.
Yeah, I think, Albert, people really they're always getting ready to get ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're in that kind of vicious cycle. You're right. I think a big part of this too is, and it's just another term, it's just self-doubt. That's what it really is. It's just self-doubt. I'm not good as him or as comparison, right? Or they're really, and it, like you said, it doesn't matter. You have to begin. Because I always tell people too, Albert, I'm like, well, do you know where everyone, when they do something new, you know where they begin? They begin at the level of awful. Okay. They're awful at it. And then they get a little better and they work their way up the ladder only by application. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It's what you're putting into practice, what you're doing, how the steps you're taking towards that is what, because you learn about 10 times faster, because we need to make mistakes, because that's how we assimilate. Those mistakes are the biggest teachers, because you're not going to keep making them, right?
Yeah. Well, they are their teachers. And that's why another mantra I go by is, which is one of the foundations of NLP, which is no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So if we look at it like that, the mistakes that we make are actually great teaching tools, and they'll help us move forward. So I like to call it like kind of like failing forward.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we're going to avoid that, no matter how much we try to. We're going to make mistakes. We're gonna fall down, fail, or what you call it as well. But like to say, learn. So that's going to happen. You're going to have these ideas. You may execute them, and they may not necessarily always go in the way that you wanted to, or the direction that you were hoping it to go into. But once you start in that momentum of just executing, your confidence is going to build, and you're just going to continue, and you're just going to continue, and you refine. Okay, well, that approach might not have worked. So what did I learn from this? Okay, well, let me try it, do it this way, and do it that way, because you'll never be fully ready. That's the myth. Like when people say, I need to be ready. No, you'll never be if you have that mentality. You just got to do it. You got to do it. And even if you look at a lot of the leaders, the leaders now, like this, the influencers, the sales leaders, the trainers, and all different aspects of personal development and all things, they will be honest with you and said that when they were beginning, they were just making all this stuff up on the fly. They really had no divine system. So if they could do it, so can we. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
for sure.
small things at one time.
Yeah, I agree. It really is. It's just practical application. Like books are great. I've written a few, and you can read them, but if they just go back on the shelf, it's kind of taking up bandwidth that you don't
Mhm.
really need, because you're not going to apply it. So it's really got to
Yeah.
have that application part. I've made my book shorter and shorter. I call them field manuals now. Okay, because I don't waste time on fluff. I get to it or how to and go apply it this way. Just go out and do it, and then give me the feedback when we train people. Like, go do it, put it into play, then come back and tell me what happened. And then from there
Yeah.
we'll adjust. And it's really good week to week. It's like, tell me what happened. Okay, well, do this now. Now apply this. Now take this. Yeah, that didn't work, but what would work in your situation? And sometimes it's an old trick I used to you do if I have 6 kids, and when you ask them, they go, I don't know. And I always say, well, if you did know, what would you say?
Yeah.
And then they give you an answer. I'm like, well, there you go. See, that's what we do. So sometimes you can be snapped out of that habitual, I don't know. I have to think about it and all that kind of stuff. We build those habits as a natural defensive response, right, to things or challenges, right? We have these little escape hatches to get away from
Oh,
those, right? To avoid them.
I,
So yeah.
absolutely. And so one of the things that sometimes comes up with that is part of, like, I look at when we coach people, it's not necessarily about us preaching our wisdom and things. I mean, yes, we may offer our guidance, but it's really about tapping in that person's own inner wisdom. Because many times we'll sit there and say, I don't know what to do here. We do. We just may not know how to access that part of our brain and that part of our, knowledge system to be able to implement that. So it's sort of like, what we have, everything we need. We just need maybe sometimes a little bit of help or assistance in executing all of that.
Yeah.
So that's where, again, a good reflection comes into. So, a lot of times, even like related to that, is if somebody asks a question about, I don't know what to do, I'm having this problem. Well, what would you do when the problem goes away? What would that look like? So when it does go away, what would that look like to you? Tell me what life will be like. Now, I'm using a couple of deliberate words here. I'm not using if the problem goes away. When the problem goes away, what would that look like? What will that look like? So I'm making, I'm kind of getting their mind to think this is real. So or another question is, how will you know when this happens? So when you say you don't have confidence, how will you know when that confidence comes in? Whether it's today, tomorrow, when will you know? What will that look like? Not if the confidence comes in, when the confidence comes in. So it's just simple, like, language shifts that we can say. Because a lot of times the word like try or if is, I think, self-destructive.
It
Because
is.
that means, like, we're in the land of, like, Santa Claus, like, if this will happen. No. Now you're talking, that it may not. So when will this happen? And what will it look like? And how will you know
Right.
when you are confident?
Right. Yeah. It's like the word try itself. I always tell people that's an embedded command for failure.
It
So,
really is.
so think of a hypnotist. Try, if you will, try as you may to lift the pencil, and they can't.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of stuff. So I drill this into my kids. Like, we don't do try.
Yeah, we
Just,
know.
just
In this,
we don't
if
do
you ever
try.
watch, a hypnotist, they'll do this. Okay, clasp our hands together. Now try to take them apart. Try. And
Right.
very often people will struggle. See, that's what happens. It's
Right.
not magic.
Right.
Hypnosis is not magic. It's really
Right.
just
Mhm.
the power of the mind. And it shows how language is really embedded in our mind. So when I tell people like, oh, I'm going to do this, will you be there? I'll try. I automatically know when somebody says
Yeah.
I'll try to be, they're not going to be there. And I think instead of saying I'll try my best, I will do my best.
Yep.
It's not I'll do my best.
There's a funny thing, little pet peeve of mine with the word try. So my kids were in scouts and all this stuff growing up. My daughters were in the Girl Scouts,
Mm-hmm.
and on the wall they had my girls had like the Girl Scout motto or something, right? And like Boy Scouts, I will do my best to do my duty, and all that stuff, right? They literally had, I will try to do my best. I'm like, first I verified, is this literally like my daughter didn't write it that way? No, that's it. I go, what? Who's in charge? I need to talk to someone in charge. Like, you're not going to try to do it. You're going to try to do your best. I will do my best. Period. Okay.
That's
But
all.
like, it's in the logo for this national organization. I was shocked. Just wow.
Yeah, I mean, because the mainstream is I'll try my best, I'll try my best, I'll try my best. Yeah, and I'm like, no, don't try. And even we've all grown up. I know when I'm a child of the '80s, so I grew up with the mantra of the train. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Right.
Which I think had great intentions, but it should be I know I can. I know I can.
Right.
I know I can. Not I think I can, because again, that's conceptual.
Right.
Well, I think I'm rich. Well, that don't mean you know anything. It's like I know I can. I know maybe changing that, like first thing I think I know I can. I know I can. I know I can. Because and this is a popular saying. We hear so many people say is whether you can or cannot do, you're right. So if you say you can't do something, you can't do it. But
Right.
if you say I can do it, it's again a possibility.
Right. Yeah, I used to coach a lot of kids, cross country track, stuff like that, boxing, everything. But my thing with them, because it's kind of interesting, you get some coaches that are into talent, right? They're only focused on the real talented kids. I'm like, well, we do have 80 kids on the team. I said, I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you they're not all super talented. Okay, but here's the deal. Here's my objective. They're here to train. I'm going to get the best that they have, that their best out of them. Yep, they're not going to set any records. They're not going to, but for them, I'm going to draw every ounce of effort and capability they have out of them. And that will be something that
Mm-hmm.
changes their life.
It'll change your life, and I guarantee change the dynamics of the team.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
they may not be talented in certain positions, but they can also be maybe talented as supportive, backup,
Right.
and
Yep. But
helping the other people that are talented. So it'll just enhance the morale of the
yeah,
team and enhance their confidence, because
yeah,
they may figure out, okay, this may not be my talent. However, I now have the motivation to really discover what I am truly good at, because I
yeah,
know if I excel in this,
for
I
sure.
can
Yeah, and
excel in pretty much anything that I
yeah,
put my
you
mind
and
to.
there's these other benefits to that attitude too. And the first one's installing work ethic. You
Mm-hmm.
give everything you have. That's what work ethic is. I'm not trying
Yes.
to be as good as someone else, whatever. I'm trying to be the best I can be. And that's the whole point, because that carries through everything you do in life. So if I can
Yes.
instill that when they're young and training for this stuff, it doesn't matter. I don't know. I see these kids, it's been 10 years, 15, and like the things they're doing now, and they still will say things like, Coach, it was like what you taught us. It's really cool. It's like I just remember that. I remember, well, maybe vomiting, maybe doing this or whatever, because you pushed us so hard. But that like was some of the best time ever. Again, they're not winning trophies. I mean, we won state championships and stuff like that, but doesn't mean that everyone has to be the record holder. But it's so cool when you see those things get applied to everything, right? And that's what it's about. This whole, when you're talking about NLP, which for people who don't know is neuro linguistic programming, right? It's really, words have meaning. I always say that too. I kind of train that with,
100%.
but I go, they mean something. It matters what you say. It matters what you write. Okay. And how you're
Yes,
saying
it does.
something. And if you ever go down the NLP trail, you'll find out, right? You're going to learn a lot there, but it becomes the power of words to help you in everything, right? If you're a salesperson, brilliant. It can help you just be awesome, help you close more deals, right? Hey, you're looking for a mate. Okay. It works there too. It works in everything you do. We're always selling. Everything you do in life is selling, but it's all about communication. Everything comes down to communication. You can't build a relationship without communication. And if you're able to have
Right.
quality communication, where people are, whether they're pattern interrupts or whatever they are to grab attention. I speak from stage, I do podcasts, I do all this different stuff. That kind of stuff really matters, right? The power of that, because people will go, he was just really good. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of know why, but I don't. And it's like, because you've got those words, right? You're able to touch people in a different way where it garners their attention and holds them. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we go, let's kind of continue on from there, because that was great. So let's talk a little more about what you do. So you're working with actors and voiceovers, and you're doing all this kind of stuff in your profession. So give us kind of a high view of that. What are you doing for them? Are you a talent scout? Are you getting them gigs? What are you really doing? Are you actually coaching them and helping them like become better at their craft?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, it's kind of a combination of all three. I would say 80 to 90% of it is just finding them gigs and working as an employment agent, because that's what I'm technically licensed as, an employment agent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, if you wanted to really break it down to career, code and category, I'm an employment agent. But, obviously for actors and entertainers. So finding gigs is the most important thing, but then also scouting for them. Now, at the moment, I'm not really actively scouting. I mean, I have a great roster already. So, but of course, if somebody comes across my desk or I get a referral of somebody absolutely amazing, I'll take a meeting and look at that possibility. So that's the first, thing. But then I also unofficially kind of coach them, because again, the industry that I'm in, show business, is an exciting, yes, it is exciting. It is very interesting and fascinating. But the reality is it's also ultra competitive and ultra heavily saturated. Now I'm in the New York area, so the New York is like the theater, Broadway capital of the world. And we're saturated. We've got hundreds of thousands of actors just in New York City alone. And then, of course, you have Hollywood, Los Angeles, and then you have Atlanta, which are all heavily thriving acting communities, which also have hundreds of thousands of actors. So only a small number of roles can be available. So it's estimated that 97 to 98% of actors are chronically unemployed. A high number. So only 2 or 3% are really kind of working steadily. So that's thousands of actors that are out of work constantly, because just how competitive it is. But also, if you're lacking in that mindset and that work ethic, and if you're filled with self-doubt, it's only going to make it worse, unfortunately. So one of the things that we really have to do, number one, is instill the work ethic. And I wish my major criticism with a lot of the training programs, especially at the 4-year conservatories and the 2-year conservatories, the university degrees, they're great. They're wonderful technique. Acting technique is wonderful. I don't, unfortunately, see a lot of business training, nor do I see any personal development there. So these kids, 21, 22-year-old kids, and I call them kids because that's just the generational thing. So they're coming out of school and they're excited. They've been working steadily during their 4 years or 2 years, whichever program that they're in. And then they move to New York or Hollywood, and they have they see the lights and the signs and all this, and kind of get hypnotized and spellbound by that initially in the beginning, but then realize that it's not going to be nearly as easy to get work as when you were in college, because it was only a short number of actors and everybody got roles because that was part of the program. So now you're competing against a much larger market. You're now this, little fish in a big pond where you might have been the big fish in a little pond. So it was easy. Now you're a tiny, very tiny fish in a large pond. How do you differentiate yourself? And yeah, there is a system to do that. And that's by, personal branding, number one. You cannot just come out and say, I'm an actor, which is great. You are. But what's your type of role? What's your type of brand? That all has to be honed in. And I wish that these schools and these programs taught that, because technique is wonderful and you definitely need that. But where's the specificity, the technicality of things? Where is the focus? Where's the branding? So that has to come in too. And then where's the resilience, the emotional intelligence, the work ethic? Those two things are so important, and just as important as having the talent and having the technique down. So that's the important thing, and it can be very easily developing imposter syndrome coming in, because maybe you audition for 6 months to a year and haven't booked a gig. And then you're around your family and friends who are not familiar with the industry, and you're at holiday dinner or Thanksgiving, whatever holiday you celebrate, and copy comes up. So you're an actor. Where what have I seen you in? Where would I see you? And then you say, well, no, I'm still looking for work. And then maybe 1 or 2 holidays later, you still come up with that response, and your family and friends, well-intentioned, well-meaning, maybe you should think about finding some other type of work. Maybe this acting thing isn't working for you. And now they hear this maybe repeatedly. And again, well-intentioned, not maliciously all sometimes, but just well-intentioned advice. But now it adds fuel to that fire, that dumpster fire, what we call, again, the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt. And so that's why a lot of actors either quit, give up, or even become bitter, unfortunately. And I've seen, I've been doing this, like I said, for 21 years. I've noticed a high turnover rate amongst so many actors that just have a turnover rate leaving, the industry after a couple of years. And sometimes they'll spend, over $100,000, 6 figures. They drop 6 figures in the training program, but now they can't use it. Now they're going to pay it back. They're in debt. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So I know I'm just one person here, but I think we need to either revamp the training program, or even, I don't like to say this, but maybe screen those that aren't 100% focused, and kind of give them more of a reality check. Like, okay, this is an exciting industry. You can definitely have a future here. However, you're going to have to work harder than you ever thought you could to get there. And you're going to have to be okay with even years, because we hear these stories of the overnight success or the overnight sensation or the big break, which is great. They do happen. But what you don't often hear is that it took them 10, 15, 20 years to become an overnight success, or 10, 15 years to get their big break. So, because you don't see what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah, that's always the case. I think in most people, no one's walking in and batting 1,000, if you will, or whatever. It's always no one sees the work. All right. And like you said, I'll reemphasize what you're saying. When they're coming through these schools that are literally, they're paying 6 figures to be trained in, and they basically realize, and I'll just say it, this is college in general. You're coming out and you're ill-equipped for anything, but you're strapped with debt and you can't get a job, and being a waitress or a waiter or doing something that's not related to your major that you dropped 6 figures on, or your parents did, whatever the case, right? And you're just like going to go flounder around for a few more years because no one did the important work. like you've been talking about, what I've been talking about. That's the important work. And they can't even weave it in, I think, because they can't fit it into a textbook. They can't have a structured thing they can grade easily and give it
Yeah,
to them to do it. Because it's individual. And they're not teaching individuals.
yeah.
They're teaching
It, it,
herds,
it's a mass
herds of
produced
people.
system.
Right. So it's if people would see that more, go, man, I really am just a little cog here. I am this guy, and there's this professor up there, and he looks kind of small because I'm sitting behind 400 other people in a class. And it's like, what am I getting from this, And then go do homework and bring it back, and there's no connection there. And that's what I think what you're saying, Albert, is really they're missing. And I see this in business and business education as well. You have an MBA and you don't know anything about business,
Hmm.
but you
Yeah,
have cool three little initials. But I talk to you and like if you haven't built a business, okay, you have no clue. So
right.
I
Well,
wonder
the
like, well,
product,
what did you learn? I get it's about administration. I guess you can go be a middle manager somewhere. That's cool. Go run people, but you can't help me with the business because you don't know anything about running the business. So like there's no real boots on the ground. People are going in like you go into community colleges, which I applaud you for, and work with these people because those people actually have a leg up in my view.
yeah.
They have a lower barrier to entry to get in there for one. They're figuring out what they want to do. They may find out, they may take 2 classes with you, and the third class, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing this at all because you showed them real stuff. Okay. You
Yeah.
see what really, and then you just saved them a gazillion dollars, a whole ton of time wasted, and everything else. And they can move on to something they may truly enjoy because they understood. We do it here with just construction, Albert. We get paid internships. People come in, they're doing masonry. Oh, I want to be a mason. Yeah, everybody says that. Till you start being a mason. Then you go, yeah, this might not be for me. You look at these
Hmm.
50-year-old guys who are hunched over and broken from, it's a very physical job and everything else. Maybe you want to think about that, but you know what? You got paid to try it, and it's
And
great
there's
and you
nothing
made a
wrong with
choice.
that.
That's
There's
right.
nothing wrong with like, okay, I tried it, or I did it and it didn't work.
That's right.
Yeah, or it wasn't for me. And that's so true. Now, again, I've only really taught at community colleges, so maybe I'm biased, but I do believe that there are some metrics where I think community college is a bit superior than the 4-year
Mhm.
college or university. And again, I'm maybe biased. I'm just going to be flat out honest, but I think again, it's all about preparing for the real world. That's really what college is supposed to do, and it doesn't, unfortunately.
Right.
It really doesn't. It's again, theory is wonderful and important, but where's the application for it?
Right. Yeah. Like I often tell my kids too, and then young people, I said, this is like they want to start a business. I'm like, okay, that's good. I was talking to my son this weekend about it. I said, but they don't have experience, right? I said, so here's what you do. Here's another beauty of the community college. Go take one accounting class. It's all you're going to need ever. Okay. Go take one kind of, drop $200 or something, right, to get in this class. You're going to know some basics. You'll have an understanding because if you're going to grow a business, you're going to hire that out. Okay. But at least you'll have an understanding in the beginning. Same thing, little things that would pertain to your business. Like I compare it to buying tools. I don't just go buy everything the store has. I get the tool I need. And that's the only tool I get. I use it, so I need another tool. Then I'll go purchase that tool, right? And I'll bring it in. And that's how I picture that. You can choose and pick, use this, get immediate application because you're growing a business at the same time. You're not sunk in that for 8 hours a day, 4 years of your life. You've got real world application every day with the stuff you're getting. So, and I don't know how we got here, but but I think it's a great thing on the community college thing and the power of it. I see people benefits. It's a huge ROI. Let's just put it in financial terms. After you get a massive ROI from doing things like that, right? You can go pay $200-300, and that can make you thousands, tens of thousands over time. It could be unbelievable ROI for that. So I applaud you for doing it. I just think people need to stop thinking it's a lower level access point. I said, this is where it begins. This is where you figure things out. And if you got half a brain for finances and realize this makes sense, I'd rather lose this much than that much. Okay.
Hmm.
I'd rather go invest $1,000 instead of $30,000, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. And you start looking that way and go, just run the numbers. Now, I'm a business guy. I like to run numbers. Okay, just run the numbers on this and let's see what we can do and how can we apply, right? You can be strategic in the application and get a great ROI. You can go, oh, I'm going to go through this 4-year, 5-year program because the average graduation is 5 years now. I think they make them do 5 years now. I don't think you can get a 4-year degree anymore. I think they flipped that, made it 5 years now for two reasons. Well, no one was graduating in 4 years, and hey, we get another year of money.
Yeah. Well, and that's a one thing. Like I even noticed. I mean, I've been out of school for, well, many years. Out of went during my undergrad, and I can tell you now. I thankfully, I mean, I had to really take some overages, but I completed my degree in 4 years.
Nice.
I cannot tell you how much we were encouraged by administration, by the our advisors. Don't worry if it takes you 6 years, 7 years, just do it. Because again, that meant more money. Now that time
Yeah.
was a lot cheaper than it is now. I can only imagine it's even more, so but it was just like we had to resist everything. I was like, nope, I think there were 2 semesters. I had to take like 6 classes, which is like it was like 4 classes full time. I had to do 6 because I wanted to just graduate and summer
Right.
class because I wanted to really just graduate in 4 years because I could have easily fell down that rabbit hole, the 5-6 year mentality, and unfortunately, and I've even had a lot of students that would sometimes even confide into me that even when you graduate transferred and would ask me for advice, saying like their counselors are even almost intentionally giving them wrong information in the classes that they need.
Mhm.
They'll say,
No,
"Oh, you made a mistake. You really need these classes." I'm like, "No, that was not a mistake.
yeah.
I didn't force it to tell a student that, but I was like in my head, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a mistake. That
Well,
was."
Albert, I talk about this often too. Even in the high school, okay, middle school, whatever. Like, how can they go there for 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, and come home with 2 to 3 hours of homework? Are you telling me you can't teach them that in an 8-hour period? And the only reason I can say that because we actually homeschooled all my 6 kids all the way through, and like, wow, we're doing all this in 3 hours a day.
Yeah,
We're getting it done at the dining room table in 3 hours. And we're having plenty of time to do this. And my kids are well traveled and we go out and we do, my wife's the master of the field trip. We're all doing this hands-on stuff outside of the air quote classroom. Right. So it's that kind of thing. Like I said, I can get whatever. I mean, it's the government school system, right? That's what it is. And most of us understand what it is now and everything else, but you have to be very, like you were very intentional on hitting that graduation point. Most people aren't. Let's just
no,
be
but
honest.
they're following what they're told, and I get that.
Exactly.
They're and of course, technically, they should know the best. The advisors,
Right.
and this is like what I did was the idea with, and I'm sure it's the same here. We follow the catalog of the college of when we entered, when we were admitted.
Yeah.
So I just always had the catalog when I was admitted in front of me with everything I needed. Because you say I follow no matter what changes is made, I follow it. I got this in writing, so I followed that, and I was like, okay, you tell me I need this credit, okay, I'll get it done, and that was the whole thing, and there were a little pushback, but it's all about being proactive, and I do agree. I mean, as a fellow educator, I do feel that 8 hours is a little too much
Yeah.
and the 3 hours of homework because are we doing busy work or are we trying to I don't know, are we trying to fill a quota, or okay, well, I'm teaching it because the one thing, and I know this is going to be controversial, but we're failing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
US is failing and we're
Yeah. Yeah.
behind
Yeah. The numbers
behind
don't lie.
major,
Yeah.
behind the line here.
Yeah.
So obviously this model isn't working, the 8 hours and this. And one I remember I was hearing this one legislator in New Hampshire many years ago had came out and said that it's all about teaching, let's condense the standards that's needed for each grade. And once you meet those standards, doesn't matter. There should be no set amount of hours that meet that. As long as they meet those standards, over. And if you can we know it's over quality over quantity. If you can hit those marks in 2 or 3 hours, guaranteed. And I would imagine that those students who do it in 2 or 3 hours are going to be superior than those that do the 8 or 9 hours, because you taught them what they needed, and that was it.
And
we're not passing them just because. And that's another thing too. At least when I was coming up in the ranks, even as a college professor, I was hearing that's when the legislation of No Child Left Behind Act came through, which I think had great intentions, but it was a disaster.
It always does.
Because
it always does have great intentions.
I grew up in the 80s. Now this never happened to me, but I know a lot of my friends and my peers at that time were being held back, had to stay back a grade. Yeah, might have been a little embarrassing. It might have been a little bit moral deflating, but that's what you needed. If they don't meet the standards in first grade, passing them on to second or third, fourth grade isn't going to help them. They're going to fall more behind. So they need to catch up on that. And think of it this way. And again, this legislator, I can't remember his name. But he was saying, like, if you're in flight school and you're teaching people to fly a plane and they take off, they go to fly, but they crash on landing, are we going to give them a pilot's license? I would hope not. Because if we use the same analogy that we use in the standard education, well, they did some work. I don't want you flying my plane that I'm going to be a passenger on if you don't know how to land. Or if you don't know how to steer or whatever it is, that small little thing that can get us hurt. No, I don't want that. I want a fully qualified pilot. And I think everybody would agree with that in any profession. You got a surgeon who's great at operation, but horrible on closing people up. I don't want that surgeon.
He's got to farm that out. You got to give someone else. They say you close and then get out.
Yeah,
I did the hard part. You do the easy part that I can't do.
Which is ironic, because if you could do the hard part, you should
exactly.
be able to
it's just it's awesome. Well, it is a fascinating conversation, Albert, because you can go so many directions in this, and like I said, there's a lot of alternatives out there that I think from people from an education standpoint that they have. So people have to remember that you do have choices, which is great. But I'll go back to like what you were saying earlier, all this from imposter syndrome to education, everything else we've kind of covered in this show today is you have to tailor it. This is one thing I've learned from homeschooling. Okay, 6 kids. They all learn individually. The problem is, again, you're trying to teach everybody the same way at the same level. You got 30 10-year-olds in the class, so none of them can help each other because they all know the same stuff. Okay, they can't help each other. You got one person at the head of a class spewing out this stuff and do this, do the homework, come back, and there's nothing there. It's just this sit for 45 minutes, bell rings, get up, turn left again, sit down, do another 45 minutes, listen to the next one person, talk to 30 people. There's no individual learning allowed. Okay. And everyone learns different. This, you've got a doctorate in this stuff. You understand like this is, and once you realize that and you start to tailor it, it's a pretty fascinating thing. Now, all my kids were within like 4 years of each other. So we've got this like little gang going through, but none of them learn the same. I mean, so there's 6 ways to teach them, but you just tailored things. They could all do the same thing at the same time, regardless of their age. It's just what they're doing in that realm, right? It's really, and you watch that and you go, wow, like it's really cool. And it's a heck of a lot more fun to teach that way than it is trying to just do a blanket thing for 30 people. So that's my soapbox. I'm done with that. Okay. But I just think we're kind of on the same page with this because we understand outcomes, right? We see the outcomes. We're in business. You're out there getting talent placed trying to help people get work and all that. Like you have to help tailor their outcome, but you look at their tools, the tools they
Mhm.
have to bring, and if they don't have a lot of tools, they can't do a lot of work,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's the important thing. They need the tools. I don't know if what that tool is and or what they need. Sometimes some students are better at learning, in this way. Some students need a little extra explanation on things. Some students need to actually, hands on. Some students learn better by listening. Some people learn better by seeing. It really depends on the individual style, and they all can learn. That's not.
Yep,
I think that's a myth when they say, well, some students. No, that's just a cop out.
that's
I
right.
think every student can learn
Yep.
if it's taught the right way. And you can even modify it because some students are going to pick up a little faster than others.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so maybe if you're, overwhelmed, in which I think it's system already designed, there's no way that each teacher should have 30 students, no matter what level we're at.
Right.
Um, even in my classes now, we cap at like 25, 26 at community college. And I even think that's sometimes a little too much. Now, of course, this is college. I'm not need to be as hands-on as I would be in elementary school. But even for me at this level, it's like, oh, this is kind of bearing like the maximum because I can't reach everybody. The truth of the matter is that then maybe you set up learning communities where you have the students that catch up very quickly can help the students that are struggling. And therefore they learn from different things. And you also should be hiring, and I know this is budgetary, this is preaching to the choir here, but I think you should hire aides or paraprofessionals in each classroom that can, if you have 30 students, get five groups of 6, or even 10, three groups of 10, the maximum, and put them in pods, and you teach, and then for 20 minutes, the other 20 minutes is reflect.
Right.
And you do that for each period. And again, it's learning, and that at the end of the day. And also, again, something that may not make me a fan of total education, but remove the fluff. Remove the fluff. What's important, and zone in on that.
Yep.
What are the skills the second or third grader needs? What are the skills in the ninth grade needs in this subject area? And that's it.
Yeah, it's a complicated product. It's a monster. Okay, the government school system. You got unions, you got tenure, you've got all these different things. It's massive, right? And when you get something at that level, it's like any government. Okay, you have a certain percentage of corruption, you have cheating, right? You have people who are not working. It's just that's the animal. Like there's a cool stat. If 10% of all the public school kids were removed in one day, the entire system collapses on itself. Yeah. Only 10%. Like they walk and the whole thing's done. So if you think of it, I'll go to business terms. If I had a business like that where I lost 10% of my clients and my business was over, I did some foolish things.
Yeah.
Okay. Like my business was not built properly. Right. So, well, it's been a great topic, Albert. This has been really interesting, man. We could spend another hour talking about just about this, but it's been a lot of fun. So here's what I want to do: kind of wrap us up here. Give us some final thoughts on what you're doing, everything else. Share that with us, and we'll kind of put it out there. How people get in touch with you, follow your work, everything else, and take it from there.
Yeah, no, I'm all about helping people reach their fullest potential. So right now on my website, albertbramante.com, I have a bunch of hypnosis recordings and audios, which will kind of give you a taste, of hypnosis. And there's so much stuff on all different topics. I encourage you to peruse my store available, and they're very inexpensive, and you could download them and listen, to them daily in your headphones, 15 minutes a day at least for 30 days straight, and see these little changes and little shifts that will happen, which can sometimes be all you really need is a little shift, a little bit of a context change. And I'll also be launching later this year as we ending 2025, a way of building the magic. And when I say magic, I don't mean like the abstract, but let's build some personal development so that we can, crush our goals in 2026. Because I always come from the mindset that the wisdom is within us. We just need to know how to tap into that. If we can tap into that, we would be so much more productive as a society. So I encourage you to reach out. I'd love to hear from you, and get you into one of my programs.
That is fantastic, Albert. I appreciate all that. So do my listeners. It's been a great conversation, as I knew it would be, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on today. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.